Here's a little bite-sized horror story as a break from all the long ones. At a one-shot amongst strangers, local group does games at a bar in the city. 3 players at a table of 5 would just randomly get up and leave the table, presumably to smoke or something. But they didn't say anything, just walked off several times while the DM stared helplessly. For context, they're talking about a ruling during a session of Vampire the Masquerade. Yep. Hey, so I want to talk about the ruling on Shadow Watchtower last Monday. By talk, I more mean to dispute it because myself and the group disagreed with the ruling. You claimed that because the power itself says shadow as opposed to darkness, meaning it wouldn't work in complete darkness. This doesn't make sense because the V20 book refers to shadow and darkness as the same entity in several of the powers, including Shadow Watchtower, as well as the body of the La Sombra clan description. Other than this, making a direct comparison, the power to others also suggests it works in complete darkness. Tenebro's form is a level 5 discipline and does the same thing as Shadow Watchtower, only you become a shadow instead. Mechanically, this means you're undetectable and immune to damage from fire. This means that for the difference of 3 levels in upgrade, you gain these benefits. If the power didn't function in darkness, it wouldn't make sense for it to be worth 15 more points. Another example of a level 8 power is the Gongrel's mythic form, which adds 9 attribute points as well as extra defenses, better movement, and free access to any level 5 discipline power for the same BP costs. I think Shadow Watchtower is more than appropriate, as I, and the rest of the group, believe it works. I do understand why you made that ruling in the moment, though. My character was about to bypass a session's worth of challenges using the power. However, there are other options than simply turning off my character's disciplines. You could be more attentive to what amount of lighting is present instead, as the powers which require darkness are stated to work in a maximum of dim light. They never define exactly what dim light is, which I would assume dim light would be the light of a full moon or less. Well, yes, this means La Sombra are great in nighttime conditions out in the boonies. There are streetlights in cities as well, as most of the buildings having lights on if someone is active in them. Another important note is that Arms of the Abyss cannot soak ag damage or move without being attached to a moving shadow. For the case of the temple in particular, while Sittites have issues with bright light, defined as police spotlights, stage lights, flares, etc., this doesn't mean that they can't have lights above the dim level on and working. In fact, I'd say they have defenses set up just for La Sombra, considering a large number of Crusader vampires are La Sombra, and they just got on the map after the well was opened. Then, in the case they want to use bright lights, there's nothing stopping the Settites from using ghouls, which, in fact, there's a Settite sorcery path dedicated to enhancing ghouls in Dav 20 Tome of Secrets you could surely use, which one of the powers permanently turns ghouls into warhorse-sized serpents with impressive combat stats. Words actually do have meanings and definitions. They refer to shadows as darkness because the definition of shadow is the darkness created when an object blocks light. They use the word darkness when talking about the night because night is defined as the period of darkness in the 24-hour cycle. Darkness itself is defined as the total or partial absence of light. We also use the word darkness to refer to the bad parts of the human experience. Total darkness is the total absence of light. They didn't say that it requires a shadow to use the power 3 times in one paragraph because they view darkness and shadows as the same thing. They're pretty much opposites of each other because one requires light to exist, while the other is the total absence of light and cannot exist in the presence of light. They use it 3 times in one paragraph to get the point across that it does not work unless you are standing in an actual shadow. They didn't emphasize that point because they were worried people would try using it in brightly lit rooms. Everybody knows that will work. They emphasize that point so people know it doesn't work in total darkness. Are you really not going to budge on this? There are dozens of quotes I can pull from inside the body of systems. If you really want me to go get them, it's obviously not supposed to work like that. It'd just be terrible game design. What are those? The Sombra are at home in pitch black. This physical manifestation lends credence to those of Sombra who claim that their darkness is something other than mere shadow. None of those say what you think they do. Quit pretending that you don't understand that words have actual definitions. White Wolf did not design a game using a dictionary. I don't care about the dictionary definition. I did not have any malicious intent when I sent these. The entire group agrees that rolling was wrong. You're the only one who has that opinion. This isn't me trying to game the system. This is me pointing out that it's how it was intended. You're wrong, flat out. I will no longer be playing in the Monday game. You obviously aren't going to listen to anything I say. I doubt you even read the message I sent. Actually, think about it, and not just the fact that you want it to work. There are no other situations they need to say that about. I'm fine with that, and no, I did not. They don't need to tell you that it's not going to work in a brightly lit room. They don't need to tell you that it doesn't work in the sun. They do need to tell you that it doesn't work in pitch black. Have you ever heard of cognitive dissonance? You didn't even read what I said, didn't even consider that you might be wrong. Do you have any idea how disrespectful that is? I'm not a fan of ultimatums, but this level of toxicity and sheer ego is something you really need to examine, and I doubt anyone else is comfortable with it either. You need to apologize and come up with a real reason to make that ruling, not a definition from outside the game's book. If not, I'm leaving the server and everyone in it will see this conversation. And I mean a real apology. After putting so much effort into each of your games, this amount of disrespect has been amplified to a greater degree. I have, at this point, I may as well be an assistant GM. Walked everyone through how Mage works, in particular with instruments, focus, etc. Built characters, or aspects of them, with all players other than blank. read massive amounts of content in order to keep rulings in Mage clear.
Do you know how disrespectful it was to accuse me of making a ruling just to save my plot? But as permissive as I've always been, your fledglings hijacked a military helicopter, and you're playing 4th Gen Anarchs. By the way, Tyler is bonded to Helena, and Helena can feel Miller, and knew where he was, so the plan was have Tyler rescue him from where he was stashed and have him become an important part. Sitting moving forward, that's why she disappeared. I decided not to when I saw how excited everyone was about the prospect of diablerizing a Methuselah. My plots change constantly based on what you guys do. I can't tell you how many times I've scrapped an entire storyline because I let you go a different way instead of forcing you down that plot. You are going into the second temple of Set in the world. It's filled with some of the most powerful vampires on Earth, among other things. The boss encounter was this. They get to the Sleeping Lord's chamber, and they have finished the first part of the ritual and transferred their soul from the jar back to his body, and they are working the ritual to be the baby's soul to the master. To get the baby back and return the Sleeping Lord's soul to the jar, they have to perform rituals that involve all of you to translate and perform while the Sleeping Lord is waking up to try stopping you. That is it with the baby in the jar, which then leads to a trip to the desert to put the jar back where it came from, and work a ritual with the Tremere to seal it in the jar. I expected Finn to sit down on his own already, so I had a plan, so
Yeah, it seems the post cut off after this little bit, so unfortunately, I'm not sure what the fuck to make of it. Other than that OP seemed to make their case harder than storyteller game master over here, but otherwise it's just drama. If you have any thoughts of your own, leave them in the comments below. Okay. Gothcat signing out. Thank you and goodbye.